week we started a series, a short little series, short little February series, kind of as a bit of like a purity series, but kind of not really. Kind of went over a list of scriptures about riffraffs and all that. Riffraffs. Nobody on YouTube is going to think anybody's here because nobody's in these two seats.
Aww.
There are people here, they're just afraid of... Josh, get out of the way. So, we started up a series, kind of titled the series, officially, unofficially, Dating God. It's kind of a weird title, I just couldn't think of anything better. Really what we're talking about is we're kind of doing a parallel of your relationship with God and seeing what that would look like if you transitioned it to a natural relationship. Like the way people do, natural dating relationships or natural friendships. What would it look like if you took your relationship with God and kind of plugged it into a more natural spectrum? And so, with it being Valentine's Day month and everything, and our Light Purity series, we're really taking this as in Singles Awareness Day. Amen. Represent. But we're really taking this in more of a intimate relationship with God. So last week we had the whole dating scene set up here. We talked about dating. If you were to get into how would you approach God? How does your relationship with God look? If you were to take it as if how you interact with a normal, natural person. And so today we have this set up like a wedding. I mean, look at this. Isn't this just like the most amazing thing? Like, isn't this how you want your wedding to look? Like this?
Oh yeah.
Okay. If any of you guys, answer is no, guys. This is not what she wants. But you guys get the gist, though, right? So we have it set up like a wedding. What? Yeah. So.
I called it first.
Yeah.
We all knew it was. I was terrified by it.
No, I
No,
saw
as
it.
soon as
I saw it run, I was like,
Dear God. No.
What is happening?
Not again. Not again. Anyway, so this week, these notes and the plan for tonight turned out a lot differently than I was originally planning. Along the same lines, but a lot longer. The notes are a lot longer than I was originally thinking they would be. Also, a little forewarning. This may get a bit intense and a bit heavy. So, heavier than normal anyway. A bit more intense than normal. So just kind of be ready for that and be open to that. Most of this is just the Bible. So in case you didn't know that the Bible talked about some of this stuff, you do now. Well, I guess if you were here last week and for the whole beginning section, now you have an idea about some of the things that the Bible does in fact talk about. So we're going to get into a bit more heavy subject matter tonight. So just kind of be ready for that. So tonight, let's go ahead and get started with talking a little bit about the proposal and covenant. So last week we were talking about kind of the dating scene, and what comes after that is the marriage scene. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, go further in from where we left off last week. Also, I would recommend for those of you who don't to bring a Bible and notebook to youth. Phones are great. Phones have notes, and phones have Bibles. I use my notes and Bible on my phone quite often, but there's something just about the traditional style of bringing a physical notebook and Bible. Also, it eliminates the temptation to play Mario-esque games on your phone.
Right.
So, just a little advice. Whether or not you want to take it is up to you, but I would recommend that you bring a physical notebook and a Bible to church. Good idea. Also, I haven't found the notebook yet. I only like barely searched, but I haven't found it yet. So much better than last time. I mean,
You found it in 2 seconds.
yeah.
Wait, found what?
I haven't looked super hard. I just haven't wanted to turn the room upside down. But in the short, like 3-minute search I didn't find it. So better than last time. All right, let's look in 1 John 4:19. 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. I really like this verse because I feel like it kind of just like sets in motion like the whole like theme of our relationship with God. It's like before we can do ... whatever it is, fill in the blank, God first did ... fill in the blank, right? So, the whole thing with, dating relationships, good relationships in general, especially marriage, the first thing should be love. That you love one another, right? Love should be, just in life in general, for those of you who are in discipleship, we've been reading through Love the Way to Victory by Kennedy Hagin. You guys know that love is literally like the most important thing and paramount to every single thing you do in life. But before we could love, or agape, he first loved us.
Yeah.
Romans 5:8. Romans 5:8. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The church said amen. So, from what we can see here, we can see that God makes the first move. And the only way that we even have the ability to love him back and to return that love is because he first loved us and then gave us the ability to love. Not only did he first love us, but he loved us while, for all intents and purposes, we were unlovable, right? He loved us while we were sinners. I always love, in the Bible says, somebody may die, give their life for a just good man. Maybe. Like that would be like, hats off to you for laying your life down for a good person. But nobody, no sane person is going to give up their life for a terrible, dirty criminal. And then Jesus shows up and says, hold my hoops, Well, I'm going to say hold my beer, but, maybe that wouldn't work. I'll get some comments on YouTube.
Hold my wine.
Here, hold my water. Jesus, this is wine. Yeah, I'll worry about it later. That's good comment right there. That's a good Christian.
Okay, Josh.
No one would die for a sinner. Hold my water. Jesus, this is wine.
Wow, that's so funny.
I know, right? Thanks,
Wait,
thanks,
you
Melanie.
said there'd be comments. I thought you turned the comments on. Yeah, why'd you turn the comments on?
I think I did, and then I forgot how I did it, and then I stopped trying.
Just look it up on YouTube, how to turn YouTube
Yeah,
comments on. Oh, on
I could,
accident?
but
Why
nobody ever comments anyway, so I'm like, who
Why'd
cares?
you turn them on? Because people would
Yeah.
be like, oh, why?
Yeah, sometimes people on YouTube are weird, or just the internet in general.
Yeah.
The comment section on the internet is just weird.
It's always
Anyway, but nobody ever comments.
It's always mean.
Jackson commented once, so in case Jackson ever wants to comment again, comments are still on. Hi, Jackson, if you're watching this.
Clint loves you.
Wait, hi who?
Jackson.
Cut that out.
Hi Jackson.
You better cut that part out.
You have to cut that
Can't. Not enough room to edit on my phone.
out.
Okay, because it always likes to duplicate it, and then doubles, and then there's not enough room. Okay, so God kind of starts out this whole thing, and we just answer back. I have like notes on here. I have no idea why I wrote it. Anyway, Luke 22, 19 through 20. Luke 22, 19 through 20. And he gave bread, and he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Likewise, he also took the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." So, with that, we're going to talk about the proposal, right? So obviously, if you're going to get married, somebody's got to propose, usually, unless you go to Vegas. So, this is basically just evidence that with God first loving us, God is the one who's initiating this, because, he's the dude. So, God initiates the proposal, right? We'll get into covenant here in a minute. But, so keep this in mind, this idea of communion, right? Take the bread, this is my body. Take the cup, this is my blood. So keep that in mind as far as this proposal. So right now I'm just kind of laying some groundwork for where we're getting so that all of this kind of adds up and makes sense. John 17, 21 through 23, going to be reading in the Passion Translation. John 17, 21 through 23. I pray for, so this is Jesus talking obviously. I pray for them all to be joined together as one, even as you and I, Father, are joined together as one. I pray for them to become one with us so that the world will recognize that you sent me. For the very glory that you have given to me, I have given to them, so that they will be joined together as one and experience the same unity that we enjoy. You live fully in me, and now I live fully in them, so that they will experience perfect unity, and the world will be convinced that you have sent me. For they will see that you love each one of them with the same passionate love that you have for me. So all that's really, really great. But the main thing I want to focus on, as for tonight, is the fact that Jesus is praying that his disciples, or even us, would be one together with one another, even as Jesus and the Father are one. But also that we, his disciples, the believers and whatnot, that we would be one with him, even as him and God are one. So last week, if you remember, we'll be getting more into this. Last week, if you remember the very beginning when I was talking about all the purity series stuff, what is it called when, a mommy and a daddy really love each other, they get married, and they consummate the wedding, and they, have the sex? What does the Bible say about it? When two people come together like that, they become one, right? Mm-hmm. So, just like physically, they become one. So, Jesus is praying that us and him would be one, right? And just before, remember the whole, eat of my body, that we become one, drink of my blood, that we become one. So we're getting to something here, so keep all this in mind. John 14, 20 through 21, in the Passion again. John 14, 20 through 21. So when that day comes, you will know that I am living in the Father, and that you are one with me, for I will be living in you. Those who truly love me are those who obey my commands. Whoever passionately loves me will be passionately loved by my Father, by my Father, and I will passionately love you in return, and will manifest my life within you. Okay, so this is covenant talk right here. The whole communion thing, and this whole becoming one. This is covenant talk. And back in these Bible days, one of the most popular and strongest covenants that they had was the blood covenant. And all covenant means is like an agreement, right? They're coming together in an agreement. So the most popular and strongest covenant they had back then was called a blood covenant. There's a whole ceremony for it. And our whole marriage ceremony that we do with the whole carpet and all that, that is actually in and of itself a type of blood covenant, right? We're not going to get too deep in all of that. And even, a lot of that's even been lost nowadays anyway, so, it doesn't even quite transition as it used to. But we're going to go through the steps of the blood covenant real quick, just to show you that the covenant that we are in with Jesus is this same kind of blood covenant, which the covenant of marriage is also one of these. I'm trying to get us somewhere with this whole theme of marriage, because it's going to be really important for where we go next. Step 1. Take off your coat or your robe. This is basically so you have two people, right? They would take off their coats and they would trade coats, and then they'd put on the other person's coat. And the coat represented your identity, right? Like who you are. And the same way, what did Jesus do, right? He took our identity as sinners, and he gave us his identity as the Son of God, right? So now we are the children of God, and he died as sin, and then left that in hell and rose again as the Son of God, because straight up cheats the system like a boss. So Jesus traded identities with us. Step 1, take off the coat and the robe, switch them, swapping of identity. Step 2, take off the belt. Now, the belt is what holds up your armor and all of your weaponry and whatnot. This is basically a trading of strength. It says, your battles are my battles, and my battles are your battles. And what does Jesus do for us? He fights our battles. He destroys everything that stands in our way. He gives us his authority, right? So, switching of power, taking off the belt. Step 3, cut the covenant. Now this is a whole thing. So basically what they do is you get pieces of an animal, you cut it in half, and then you lay it on two sides, right? So like marriage ceremony, you got like the two families and all of that kind of stuff. But so you have two dead animals with the blood in the middle, and then they come to do a figure 8, and they say, let it be done unto us like these animals if anybody ever breaks the covenant. This is kind of like the big part of the ceremony where it's like they're actually cutting the covenant, coming to the agreements and everything. And think about, how did Jesus die? Like actually, what did it look like when he was up there on the cross? Who was up there with him? You guys remember the story? You got 2 thieves on each side. So you got, 2 dead thieves, a thief on each side, and Jesus and his blood in the middle. And Jesus cut covenant with himself because obviously we just mess up. Same thing in the Old Testament when God cut the first covenant, he cut it with himself. Jesus cut the second covenant and cut it with himself again because we can't be trusted. But we just get all the benefits of it because God's just good for some reason. All right, step 4. Raise the right arm and mix the blood. We receive Jesus' blood and become one. Remember the whole communion thing? Drink this blood? Okay. Everybody still following? Am I going too fast? Everybody still following? So basically all of this, I'm trying to rush through this real quick, but I'm trying to get all of this so you guys recognize and realize that we are in a covenant with Jesus. And not to weird all out, but it is the same type of covenant that marriage is. Yeah. So, just so they're kind of all on the same page here, so everything makes sense. Step 6, make a scar. So, this is, they have the blood there because they mix the blood, right? And then they would rub, dirt or something else in there to make a scar so that they could always see. Now, Jesus got some scars, one on each hand and his feet, right? And also, the Bible talks about whenever we're born again, it's a circumcision of the heart. Now, in natural circumcision, that is how it is. But so, spiritually, we have the circumcision of the heart, right? Because this is a spiritual thing, obviously, not purely physical. But with Jesus, he literally took it physical, and it still remains physical. So we got the scars. Step 7, give the covenant terms. Obviously, we got the covenant terms. Jesus became a high priest, changed the whole order of things. Now we got, he cut covenant with himself. So really, the terms are great and all, but it's basically just with him. So you can't get out of it quite as easy by breaking it and whatnot. So give the covenant terms. Obviously, we got covenant terms. Eat the meal. Step 8 is eat a memorial meal. Communion. Right? That's basically what communion is. Every time you do this in remembrance of me and what's about to happen. Because the whole thing about communion, the whole blood and the flesh, that's basically what he was doing in the act of covenant. So whenever you do this, remember this covenant and what I did for it. Yeah. Step 9, plant a memorial tree. What did Jesus die on? A tree. Wow. What does everybody carry around their necks and whatnot and put on the back of their cars and on little wooden plaques on their homes? The cross, which is a tree. So, also, to carry the cross daily, that we always keep in remembrance of the cross and everything. So, we take it with us, plant the memorial in our heart. So, is everybody on the same page now that all of this kind of looks, everything that Jesus did kind of looks like a blood covenant, doesn't it? So, are we on the same page that we are in blood covenant with Jesus? Mm-hmm. Okay, we talked about this in Secret a couple years ago, too, in case you forgot that. So, okay, all on the same page, we are in covenant with Jesus, and the same kind of covenant we're in with Jesus is the same kind of covenant that is a marriage covenant. So you could say, just like we talked about last week, as being the bride of Christ, that we are, at the very least, engaged to Jesus, right? And obviously, there's the marriage supper of the Lamb and all that, but the covenant's already been cut, so we're already in covenant and everything. So, now, let's kind of liken our spiritual marriage to God and to Jesus and whatnot. Obviously, don't get too weirded out because our relationship with God is obviously very broad and kind of checks all the boxes for like every type of relationship. But I just think it's interesting perspective because natural dating and romantic relationships are like such a big deal to a lot of people nowadays, and sometimes are like the primary focus of some people. That if you're going to be focusing so much on that, making that such a big part of your life, then I think you might as well kind of plug God in there and see how God would fit. So let's take our relationship with God and plug that in as if it were a physical relationship with a physical person, right? So let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's ask, so if this is marriage, what is one of the main issues that we have within marriage? So last week obviously we talked about dating relationships and how much time you spend with them, how well you know them, what are your motives and all that. So now that we're transitioning into a marriage relationship, what's one of the biggest issues within marriages, do you think?
What do you mean issues?
Like if something were to
Things that couples fight
really,
about?
yeah, like if something were to really hinder a marriage or destroy a marriage, what would be one of the main things that you want to make sure you're not messing up on?
I was going to say that.
Yeah, money's a big thing, but God's got all the money, so that's literally not a problem.
I didn't know what you meant. So
Huh?
Stay cheating.
Yeah, cheating.
So, are you faithful? So that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Are you faithful? Simplify, right? Sean's got tattooed, always faithful.
Yeah, it says faithful.
Yeah.
So as soon as he said faithful, I was like, hey.
Are you faithful? We know God's faithful. The Bible says that even if you are not faithful, God remains faithful because he cannot deny himself. So apparently, he's not only love, but he also is the personification of faithfulness. Which is good, because if he wasn't, literally all of existence would just be ripped apart. So as long as everything is here, you know that God is still very much faithful to you and his word. That is good. That is good. So the only variable in this relationship is us. So you got to ask yourself, are you faithful? Like if you were to transition this spiritual relationship to a physical relationship, are you faithful? Are you cheating? Adultery is having another lover outside of the one that you're covenanted with. So, like we just talked about, we are in covenant with God. Do you have another lover? Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You can't serve God and man, which is, money and whatnot. But the principle still holds true. There's life and there is death. There is God and and the truth and things that are for God and worshiping God and of God's intentions. And then there is the perversion of what God has made. There's the perversion of God's will, and all of that being spearheaded by the devil, right? Who has been God of the world since Adam and Eve's fall, and only now, since Jesus has lost that authority, but still continues to rule for those who allow him, right? Until the church really rises up and takes their place of authority, the devil will still, rule, even though he has lost his authority to do so. So the world is obviously on his side, right? Are you committing adultery with the devil and the world? Exodus 34:14. Exodus 34:14. For you shall worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Deuteronomy 4:24. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. James 4 through 5. Adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you think that the Scripture says in vain, the Spirit who dwells in us yearns jealously? For whatever reason, God loves us so much that not only is he unwilling to go without us, he is unwilling to let anybody else have us. Which is good, because the only other alternative literally hates us and wants us dead. So, remember when we talked about Satan wants you dead? You know? So, I got you, honey. Jump. I saw that. Okay.
I knew where that was going.
Right. Yeah. Maddie's like, I've seen this before. But, years and years of this. I can tell. But, so.
It's a discount.
So. Think about that, though. Who has most of your affection? God or the stuff of the world? Now, obviously, I figure none of us in here are Satan worshipers. So, if I were to say God or Satan, you'd be like, well, duh. But what about just the things of the world? It's a lot easier for just the things of the world to kind of slip in through your window at night than it is an actual, like, hairy demon. I just assume, like, demons like really like nasty and hairy and whatnot. Because why not? But climbing up in your window, snatching people up. But it's a lot easier for just stuff, right? Like when Jesus gave the parable of the sower, right? Only one of them actually bears fruit from it. The other of them all kind of just fall away because of cares of the world. See, because I think a lot of times you think, okay, so obviously I don't love the world. I'm not going out like partying and drinking and whatnot. I'm not going around like fornicating and picking up prostitutes and whatnot. I'm not going around like gambling and doing a whole bunch of heavy drugs and everything. I'm not doing that, so that's the world. But the world is really just anything that is not God. Anything that's not a part of his kingdom. Anything that's been perverted by the devil.
Yeah.
Which is basically everything. Everything that God has made, Satan has snuck in and tried to pervert. So that obviously doesn't mean that everything is bad, everything in the world is bad, but everything in the world that is of the world, of the sake of the world that has been perverted by the devil, is there. Because remember, what's the devil's agenda? To steal, to kill, and to destroy. So it's there literally to lure you away to destruction, right? To lure you away from your lover to the whole devil, right? I like how Pastor Steve, he used to have a message years ago. I don't think he's done it recently. But he used to have a message years ago titled, "The Devil's a Whore." And that's what he would talk about, right? Like, the devil will sleep with anybody. Like, he don't care. Like, I mean, if he can get in there and draw you away from God, he will do anything and anyone to, get in there and draw you away. Like devil sleep with anybody. Like, do crazy. The devil's a whore. According to Pastor Steve. So, I mean, it's true, though. He was a hoe. He was a dirty little hoe. But, and everything on his side is there to steal, to kill, and to destroy. It's things of the world. But think about it. Who's got more of your affection? God or the things of the world? I'm not necessarily just talking about, like, the partying and the drug life, right? I'm just talking about the stuff that just leads you away. Anything that steals your time from God, whether it's good or bad, to you has become bad, has become a thing of the world, has become a trap of the enemy. Because, I mean, Satan knows the word. Satan knows what's good. And he can, most of the time, actually, like, especially for those of us who are church, he leads you away with something that looks good. Like, think about it. How did Satan first start this with Eve? What did he use to tempt Eve? Something that God had made. Something that God had made and said, this is good. But something that God said, don't touch it. Right? So he lured her away with something that looked good. Yeah. Something like, this is of God. This looks good. And he lured her away with it. Then Adam, the dummy, he came up behind her. It didn't help much, So, and thus, the whole of human history. So you got to ask yourself, sometimes do some introspective and ask yourself the tough questions. Who has most of my affection? God or the world? Who do I spend most of my time with? God or the world? When I wake up in the morning, who's got most of my thoughts in my mind? God or just stuff? Or am I drawing pentagrams? This is literally the devil. I don't know. Wake up. Oh, dang. Speaking Latin, summoning demons again.
You know what I'm getting? Yeah,
James 4 through 6 in the Message. You're cheating on God if all you want is your own way. Flirting with the world every chance you get. You end up enemies of God and His way. And do you suppose God doesn't care? The proverb has it that He is a fiercely jealous lover, and what He gives in love is far better than anything else you'll find. It's common knowledge that God goes against the willful proud. God gives grace to the willing humble. The devil's a whore. And he wants to distract you and lead you away. He'll come in like an angel's light, like I said earlier, with something good. Something that seems good, something that seems like something that you like. He comes in with something that seems good. He doesn't just come in like, hey, you want to live under a bridge, like hooked on meth? That sounds fun, right? God, meth addict. Come on, I mean, this is a hard one. It's a hard one, I know, but I mean, meth addict, this looks really good. Like, you want to come in with something good, right? Like, hey, dude, that dude you just crossed in the hall, that dude's pretty cute, right? Like, he's single, like, you know, he just broke up with a girlfriend. I'm just saying, like, you look good, right? Like, I mean, he went to church like once, right? I mean, he's basically a Christian. I mean, come on, like, dude, he's on the cheerleading team. So, you know, he's got great legs, something, you know. Yeah, right? You know, he's got me with something that looks good, right? And he'll promise you the world. He did it to Jesus. He literally promised Jesus the world. Remember that? Yeah. So don't think you're going to be excused from this, or like, you know, he's going to be using different tactics. He did the same thing on Jesus, right? Literally promised him the world. But as soon as he has you, and he's got you to turn your back on God, he'll throw you down and cast you away. That was a hoe. You know the thing about prostitutes? They have a price. So sometimes you got to ask yourself, what's my price?
Oh, God.
That's like one of the harder questions I got to ask. I forget whether it's at C4C or somewhere. But they're like, could you be bought? Can you be bought? Like, they took it to the extreme. Whenever, you know, the question was offered to me, is like, can you think of anything? Like, if some genie with, like, mythical powers, right? Like, if somebody could literally was completely all-powerful and could give you anything you could imagine, can you come up with a scenario? Can you come up with something that you would turn your back on God for? It's like, hey, look, you can have this, whatever kind of scenario you want, right? Anything, literally anything. Like, you could be God himself if that's what you wanted. All you have to do is turn your back on God. Just completely cut ties with God, don't have anything to do with him anymore, and you can have whatever you want. You could be God. You could create your own world. You could do whatever you want in that world. You could have all the money you want. You could get with whoever you wanted. You could be rich and famous. You could be a celebrity. All you got to do is reject God. What's your price? Everybody's got a price. Everybody's got a price. What's yours? Do you have a price? Do you think you're in a place where you don't? Are you so passionately in love with God, so undistractedly in love with God? That there's no price? Maybe. I don't know, that's just a tough question you got to ask yourself. I think it's important that you do. Really, really dive deep into your heart. See if there's anything that could be offered you that you would turn your back on God. That you would reject an eternity in heaven with God for something else. I don't know. I mean, you could be an immortal God yourself. Why serve God when you could be God? That's what Satan wanted. That was Satan's price. Only if you want it. I mean, you can be God of nothing. If you don't like it, just start over again.
I feel like I'd be in too much pressure, and I'm accidentally just snap my finger and everything's gone.
So, who cares?
No, but
Who cares that you're God?
But then I'd feel bad, and then I'd be really sad, and I'd be lonely because then I'd be.
You get over it. You got all of eternity to get over it.
No, I wouldn't. You don't know me.
I'm just saying though, what's your price? Because I feel like once you like really think about it, it's probably a lot cheaper than you think. It's probably your friends. It's probably Netflix. What do you trade your time with God for on a daily basis? That's a tough question. Ouch. That one'll hurt. It's one reason why I made my New Year's resolution this year. Because I realized, dang, yeah, trading my time with God for Netflix, video games. I'd rather do that. It's a pretty cheap hoe. Just saying. well, only people that trade intimacy for a price is a
Is
prostitute.
that the word today?
Huh?
Is that today's word?
Yeah, whore and prostitute.
Oh, I was thinking hoe.
Oh,
Okay.
well, hoe goes along with it. What is your price? What would you trade God for? What do you trade God for on a daily basis? How expensive are you? I'll tell you how expensive you are to God.
Wow.
Jesus.
Oh. Yep.
God literally already paid everything. And God is literally everything.
Yeah.
Nothing is except for He is.
Yeah.
He literally introduced Himself saying, I am. You are what? Fill in the freaking blank. Blank's not big enough, but I'll definitely fill it. Because I am everything. And He traded everything for you. What do you trade?
Wow.
To not spend time with Him.
Yeah.
It's a tough question, but if you really believe that this is real, and you really believe that your relationship is real, you have to ask yourself tough questions. If you were, think about it, because we're trying to take this and see what would it look like naturally. If you were, maybe for you guys, if you're in a dating relationship, or if you could imagine if you were married. So you're married to somebody, right? And you come home, and your spouse is like, hey, honey, you want to spend some time together, have some dinner, talk, whatnot, maybe watch some Netflix together later. It's like, oh no, sorry, I gotta go, shampoo the dog. 'Cause that's really what I love doing. I don't know why that's the first hobby that came into my mind. Yeah, it's like, oh no, sorry, I gotta go play foosball with myself for a couple hours because I'm just really getting good at playing one-sided foosball. It's my passion, and every single day, right? So you walk home. You walk home and God's like, hey man, you want to spend some time? I got something in my word that you really, really need right now, and it's really, really good. And then maybe we can pray for 5 minutes and talk to each other. I got some stuff I need to tell you about some stuff that's coming up that's really gonna help you so you don't get stressed out later. It's like, oh no, God. Punisher season 2 is on Netflix. This stuff is balling.
They're obsessed.
Love season 1. Yeah, I already got through it. Yeah, it's I got Punisher's on Netflix. Maybe tomorrow, but then tomorrow, you got that new Sword Art Online is up there. You gotta watch that. You gotta get caught up. You already suffered through the last of it. You gotta see if this one's any better. And it's a little bit better, but you gotta get through it, right? What would you trade? Mark 8, 34 through 37. When he had called the people to himself, with his disciples also, he said to them, "Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what profit is to a man if he gains the whole world, but loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" Dang, Jesus is asking hard questions too. So I feel like we never actually honestly think about it. We all just good Christian answer, nothing. I love Jesus. I would never trade anything. But then you spend your entire day finding reasons why not to pray or talk to him or getting your Bible, or maybe you just never even think about it. Which I'm if you're in a relationship with somebody and you never think about them, and you never think about talking to them or spending time with them, you never think of cool stuff you could do together, you might want to recheck that. The only time you ever spend time with them is 2 days a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. You might want to rethink your relationship.
For sure.
Because that's a pretty sucky relationship. Right? You want to say something?
I have so much information down. My Cheetos that I forgot. Oh, okay.
You ever just forget your Cheetos? What would you trade for your Cheetos? If you just go through your day and you forget about your Cheetos, do you really love your Cheetos?
Cheetos aren't even good.
You could.
Cheetos
All right. Allie's over there drawing pentagrams. She doesn't like Cheetos.
Wait.
How do I just change this to Cheeto Puffs? I have a question. Cheetos are bigger than Cheetos.
I love those the jalapeno cheddar Cheetos.
Yeah.
Those are balling.
And the Cheeto
I just got
Puffs.
this on a whole different topic, but I was trying to.
That's what she did. She goes,
No, I did this.
all right.
Okay, Leah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, these are cornbread.
Gosh, y'all got me forgetting everything.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We got 10 minutes.
Do you have
I'm
one
not
of
even
those
halfway through.
rhetorical questions? Actually, I was going to say something to it, but I forgot what the question was.
Did I ask- what would you trade?
What would I trade?
Yeah.
I
Is that the question?
I thought it was. I don't know.
All right. We got to move forward because we got
Okay,
the
bye.
next big chunk here.
She said.
Okay. With this, when it comes to faithfulness to God, I always you ever read through the Old Testament and you hear you see the stories of the prophets or somebody they're talking about somebody or a group of people, and it's really, really harsh. But you think to yourself these are just people going through their daily lives. They're probably not thinking anybody has this kind of critique about them. I always wonder if you were to take my life and write about it like an Old Testament prophet would, what would you say? Would you say I was faithful to the Lord to the end? Or to say, and then Josh found Netflix and he turned his back on the Lord and started committing the sins of his father. I'm just because that's what they say. My dad doesn't watch Netflix. But, I'm how would they write? And I read stuff like this in Ezekiel 16. I always want to cry every time I read this. First time I read this, I think I did. And so just strap in. I want to read this whole thing. Other than a couple little parts, just because it's literally about Israel and doesn't really tie into the rest. It does, but it's more specific to Israel. So this is a parable that God gives in Ezekiel about the nation of Israel. The title of it is the parable of the adulterous wife. So I'm just going to read it. So strap in. God's message came to me. Son of man, confront Jerusalem with her outrageous violations. Say this, the message of God, the Master to Jerusalem. This is a doozy. You were born and bred among the Canaanites. Your father was an Ammonite and your mother a Hittite. One day you were born, your umbilical cord was not cut, you were bathed, you weren't bathed or cleaned up, you weren't rubbed with salt, you weren't wrapped in a baby blanket, no one cared a fig for you, no one did one thing to care for you tenderly in these ways. You were thrown into a vacant lot and left there, dirty and unwashed, a newborn nobody wanted. Hey, a late-term abortion. That's timely, isn't it? Yes?
Do you know there's a law in New York?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
I
right.
know.
Ooh,
It means
Yes, I know.
So bad.
It's just like what?
Yeah, don't get me started on that. We do not have time. Yes, so there you go. A late-term abortion. And then I came by. I saw you all miserable and bloody. Yes, I said to you lying there helpless and filthy. Live. Grow up like a plant. So what's God's will for babies? Live. Anyway,
Right.
it's a good thing none of these videos are monetized on YouTube because that would get them unmonetized. Fight the power. Grow up like a plant in the field. And you did. You grew up and grew tall and matured as a woman, full-breasted and flowing hair. But you were naked and vulnerable, fragile and exposed. I came by again and saw that you were ready for love and a lover. I took care of you, dressed you and protected you. I promised you my love and entered the covenant of marriage with you. Covenant of marriage. Hey, didn't we talk about that? Okay. I, God the Master, gave my word. You became mine. I gave you a good bath, washing off of that old blood, and anointed you with my aromatic oils. I dressed you in colorful gown. I love, I think it's the Amplified Class. It says, I decked you out. I like that terminology. I dressed you in a colorful gown and put leather sandals on your feet. I gave you linen blouses and fashionable wardrobe of expensive clothing. I adored you with jewelry and placed bracelets on your wrists, fitted you out with a necklace, emerald rings, sapphire earrings, and a diamond tiara. You were provided with everything precious and beautiful, with exquisite clothing and elegant food, garnished with honey and oil. You were absolutely stunning. You were a queen. You became world famous, a legendary beauty, brought to perfection by my adornments. Decree of God the Master. But your beauty went to your head, and you became a common whore, grabbing anyone coming down the street and taking them into your bed. You took your fine dresses and made tents of them, using them as brothels in which you practiced your trade. This kind of thing should never, ever happen. And then you took all the fine jewelry I gave you, my gold and my silver, and made pornographic images of them for your brothels. You decorated your beds with fashionable silks and cottons, and perfumed them with my aromatic oils and incense. And then you set out the wonderful foods I provided, the fresh breads and fruits with fine herbs and spices, which were my gifts to you, and you served them as delicacies in your whorehouses. That's what happened, says God the Master. And then you took your sons and your daughters, whom you have given birth to as my children, and you killed them, sacrificed them to idols. Wasn't it bad enough that you had become a whore, and now you're murdering, killing my children, and sacrificing them to idols? Not once during these years of outrageous obscenities and whorings did you remember your infancy, when you were naked and exposed, a blood-smeared newborn. And then to top it all off, all of your evil acts, you built your bold brothels in every town square. Doomed to you, says God the Master. At every major intersection, you built your bold brothels and exposed your sluttish sex, spreading your legs for everyone who passed by. And then you went international.